On a cold winter afternoon at the bustling city bank, Maggie Thompson, an elderly woman clutching an old, worn envelope, faced the indifference and cold demeanor of Todd Murphy, the powerful bank manager, until Keanu Reeves, a mysterious man with an unassuming appearance but resolute eyes, unexpectedly appeared, turning an ordinary wait into a dramatic battle for justice and compassion. In the heart of the bustling city, Central City Bank was a hive of activity, serving a diverse clientele with a myriad of financial needs. That day, however, the atmosphere was unusually tense. Long queues of frustrated customers, murmurs of complaints, and the frantic movements of employees struggling to manage the chaos created an oppressive environment. Maggie Thompson, a dignified elderly woman with silver hair and anxious eyes, stood patiently in the crowded line. Her hands tightly grasped a weathered envelope, her fingers trembling slightly. Maggie had come to the bank to resolve what seemed like a minor error in her account, but for her, it was a matter of survival. Each month, unexpected maintenance fees chipped away at her modest pension, pushing her to the brink of financial despair. As Maggie approached the service counter, she took a deep breath, attempting to steady her nerves. She adjusted her coat, trying to project confidence, but the worry in her eyes betrayed her true feelings. "I hope they can sort this out today," she whispered to herself, her gaze fixed on the envelope that held her last hope. Around her, other customers dealt with their own frustrations. Some exchanged polite smiles with bank staff, hoping for swift resolutions, while others seethed with anger, their voices rising in complaints about poor service. For Maggie, every passing minute was a test of her patience and resilience, as she braced herself for the encounter ahead. Finally, Maggie reached the service counter and was greeted by Brittany Parker, a young bank teller with a tired expression and impatient demeanor. Brittany barely glanced up from her computer screen as Maggie presented her envelope. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How can I help you today?" Brittany asked mechanically, her tone devoid of warmth. Maggie adjusted the envelope in her hands and took another deep breath. "Good afternoon. I'm here because my account has some charges that I believe are incorrect. I brought all the necessary documents to understand what's going on." Brittany took the envelope without looking up, flipping through the papers with practiced indifference. "Let's see. These charges are standard, ma'am. They're all listed in your account agreement," she stated, pushing the envelope back towards Maggie without a hint of empathy. Maggie tried to explain, her voice wavering. "I can't afford these fees. This must be a mistake. I was never informed about these additional charges." Brittany sighed and rolled her eyes, drawing the attention of nearby customers. "Ma'am, maybe you don't understand how things work these days. Banks have policies, and these fees are automatic." "There's nothing I can do," she replied dismissively. Feeling belittled and humiliated, Maggie struggled to hold back tears. "I just want what's fair," she whispered, her voice barely audible. At that moment, Todd Murphy, the bank's manager, approached the counter. Tall and impeccably dressed, Todd exuded authority and confidence. His sharp eyes scanned the room before settling on Maggie and Brittany. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his tone leaving no room for argument. Brittany quickly masked her earlier indifference with a nervous smile. "No, sir. Just a customer having trouble understanding her account policies," she responded, hoping to defuse the situation. Maggie, feeling increasingly powerless, tried to speak up. "That's not it. I believe there's been a mistake with my account. I'm just trying to get it resolved." Todd raised his hand, cutting her off firmly. "Ma'am, if you think there's been a mistake, you should have read the contract before opening your account. Everything is very clear for those who pay attention," he said coldly. Taken aback by Todd's harsh tone, Maggie took a deep breath before responding. "I've always kept my account in good standing. These charges appeared out of nowhere. All I'm asking is for someone to review them." Todd let out a brief, almost mocking laugh. "Review? Ma'am, what's in the system is in the system. "We don't review something that's automatic," he retorted, his demeanor making Maggie feel even smaller. Desperation and humiliation weighed heavily on Maggie as Todd continued, "If you can't afford the fees, maybe this bank isn't the right place for you." Maggie opened her mouth to respond, but words failed her. She looked down at the envelope in her hands, feeling utterly defeated. The surrounding customers watched in uncomfortable silence, the once bustling bank now holding its breath. As the tension at the Central City Bank reached its peak, an unexpected presence began to shift the dynamic within the crowded space. The automatic doors swung open quietly, allowing a gust of cold winter air to sweep through the bank. All eyes momentarily turned toward the entrance, curious about the newcomer disrupting the monotony of the afternoon rush. He entered with a calm demeanor, dressed in a simple, dark jacket and a baseball cap that concealed most of his face. His unassuming appearance initially caused him to blend seamlessly into the background, but there was something about the way he carried himself that commanded subtle attention. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning the room with a keen, observant gaze that seemed to take in every detail. Keanu Reeves, known to the world as a renowned actor, was here for reasons unknown to the bank's patrons. His presence was unheralded, and he carried no briefcase or obvious signs of wealth. Instead, he seemed like an ordinary man, perhaps even a regular customer seeking assistance. Yet, there was an undeniable air of determination about him that hinted at a deeper purpose. As he approached the service counters, his attention was drawn to the distressed figure of Maggie Thompson standing before Brittany Parker and Todd Murphy. He could sense the frustration emanating from Maggie and the cold dismissal from the bank employees. Something about the scene struck a chord within him, compelling him to act. Keanu paused for a moment, observing the interaction with a thoughtful expression. He noticed the subtle signs of Maggie's desperation and the dismissive body language of Brittany and Todd. It was clear that Maggie was not just dealing with a routine banking issue, there was a deeper, more troubling problem at hand. The unjust fees were not just a financial burden but a threat to her very livelihood. Summoning his courage, Keanu took a step forward and positioned himself between Maggie and the indifferent bank employees. His presence alone seemed to alter the energy in the room, bringing a sense of gravity to the situation that had previously been lacking. He met Todd's stern gaze with unwavering confidence, his voice steady and authoritative. "Excuse me, but it doesn't seem right how this is being handled," Keanu interjected smoothly, his tone leaving no room for dismissal. "Maggie deserves better than this." Todd Murphy looked taken aback by the sudden intervention. He was not accustomed to challenges from customers, let alone from a seemingly ordinary man who had just walked into the bank. Brittany Parker glanced nervously between Maggie and Keanu, sensing the shift in power dynamics. Keanu continued, addressing both the bank employees and the onlookers. "Let's take a closer look at these charges. If there's been a mistake, we need to address it immediately. If not, then we need a clear explanation of why these fees are being imposed." Maggie felt a surge of hope as Keanu's words echoed in the tense space. For the first time, she wasn't alone in her struggle against an indifferent system. The other customers in the bank began to pay closer attention, sensing that something significant was unfolding. Brittany hesitated, her fingers hovering over the keyboard as she processed Keanu's intervention. "Mr. Reeves, I assure you, these fees are standard and fully compliant with our policies," she replied, attempting to maintain her professional facade. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "I understand that policies are in place, but policies should serve the customers, not the other way around. If these fees are automatically applied, then there must be a reason why they are affecting Maggie's account specifically. Let's review her account together to ensure everything is in order." Todd stepped forward, his frustration evident. "We've been over this already. There are no mistakes. These fees are non-negotiable." Keanu met Todd's gaze calmly. "Is that so? Because from what I can see, there might be more to this than a simple policy enforcement. Maggie has been a loyal customer for years, and these sudden fees are crippling her financially. That doesn't align with the values of a reputable institution. Maggie felt a weight lift off her shoulders as Keanu stood by her side, his support giving her the strength to face the daunting situation. The other customers watched in silent anticipation, the room now holding its collective breath as the confrontation unfolded. Keanu reached out and gently took the envelope from Maggie's hands, examining the documents with a discerning eye. "Let's see if we can identify any discrepancies here," he suggested, his analytical mind already at work. Sometimes, what appears to be an error might be a symptom of a larger issue. As Keanu delved into the details of Maggie's account, the atmosphere in the bank began to shift. The initial tension gave way to a sense of possibility, as if the very walls of the institution were reacting to the challenge being posed. It was clear that Keanu was not just a bystander, he was an active participant determined to uncover the truth and ensure justice was served. As Keanu meticulously reviewed the documents in Maggie's envelope, the tension in Central City Bank continued to escalate. Todd Murphy, the bank manager, stood rigidly by the counter, his frustration mounting with each passing second. He had prided himself on maintaining control over his domain, but Keanu's unexpected intervention was beginning to undermine his authority. "Mr. Reeves," Todd began, his voice tinged with irritation, "I understand your concern, but as I mentioned earlier, these fees are standard and outlined clearly in the account agreement. There's nothing more we can do." Keanu looked up from the envelope, meeting Todd's gaze with unwavering composure. "Are you certain, Mr. Murphy? Because from what I can see, there might be more to this than just standard fees. Maggie's situation doesn't align with the typical customer profile these fees are designed to target." Todd's jaw tightened, and he took a step closer, invading Keanu's personal space. "Look, I don't have time for this. We've been over the policies numerous times, and there's no room for negotiation. If Maggie has a problem, she should have addressed it before these fees escalated." Brittany Parker, the young teller, shifted uncomfortably behind Todd. Her earlier confidence had evaporated under the weight of Keanu's presence. She glanced nervously between Todd and Keanu, unsure of how to proceed. Keanu remained calm, sensing Todd's growing agitation. "I understand that policies are in place to maintain consistency and fairness, but what about the fairness towards your customers? If these fees are indeed standard, why are they disproportionately affecting elderly customers like Maggie?" Todd's frustration was palpable. "That's not how it works. These fees are automatic and applied uniformly across all accounts. There's no discrimination involved." Keanu took a step back, allowing the space to fill with the charged atmosphere of the bank. Uniform application doesn't necessarily mean fair application. If a policy inadvertently disadvantages a specific group, it's essential to reassess its impact. Maggie is not just another account holder, she's a loyal customer relying on her pension to get by. Maggie felt a flicker of hope as Keanu spoke, her spirits lifting slightly amidst the oppressive environment. The other customers in the bank began to pay closer attention, sensing that a significant confrontation was unfolding. Todd's eyes narrowed, and he crossed his arms defensively. "So, what are you suggesting, Mr. Reeves? That we scrap our policies because one customer is unhappy? That's not how banking works." Keanu shook his head gently. "I'm not suggesting scrapping policies, but rather reviewing them to ensure they serve all customers fairly. If these fees are causing undue hardship, especially for those who can least afford it, then it's a problem that needs to be addressed." The room seemed to hold its breath, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Todd took a deep breath, trying to regain his composure. "I appreciate your concern, but as I said, these fees are non-negotiable. If Maggie has an issue, she needs to follow the proper channels." Keanu stepped forward once more, his voice firm yet respectful. "With all due respect, Mr. Murphy, Maggie is already following the proper channels by addressing this issue directly with you. However, her concerns are being dismissed without a thorough investigation. This isn't just about one account, it's about ensuring that your policies are equitable and just for all customers. Todd's facade of control began to crack under the pressure of Keanu's logical and compassionate arguments. He glanced around the bank, noting the attentive gazes of other customers who were no longer willing to remain silent observers. The manager's authority was being questioned in a way he hadn't anticipated, and it was beginning to unsettle him. Brittany, sensing the shift in dynamics, spoke up hesitantly. "Maybe there's something we can do to help, Mr. Murphy," she suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. Todd dismissed her with a wave of his hand. "No, Brittany. This is between Mr. Reeves and me. We have nothing to discuss here." Keanu turned his attention back to Maggie, offering her a reassuring smile. "Maggie, let's work together to find a resolution. You deserve to be treated with respect and fairness." Maggie felt a surge of gratitude toward Keanu, her anxiety easing slightly with his support. She looked back at Todd, her eyes pleading for understanding. "Please, Mr. Murphy, I really need your help. These fees are making it impossible for me to make ends meet." Todd rubbed his temples, clearly struggling to maintain his authoritative stance. "Fine. I'll review your account again, but I can't make any promises. Our policies are set for a reason." Keanu nodded appreciatively. "Thank you, Todd. I believe a thorough review will reveal the necessity of addressing any discrepancies. It's crucial for maintaining the trust and integrity of your institution." As Todd reluctantly began to access Maggie's account on his computer, the bank's atmosphere shifted from tension to a cautious optimism. Customers watched intently, witnessing a rare moment of accountability within the usually impersonal banking environment. Keanu stood by Maggie's side, ready to support her through whatever outcome awaited. Todd's fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up the account details once more. "Let's see what's going on here," he muttered, his earlier confidence wavering. Keanu leaned in, watching the screen intently. "Take your time, Todd. We all want to ensure that everything is handled correctly." Maggie held her breath, the weight of her financial struggles momentarily lifted by Keanu's unwavering support. The bank, once a place of frustration and indifference, was now the stage for a potential turning point in her battle for justice. As Todd Murphy began to scrutinize Maggie Thompson's account, the room held its collective breath. Keanu Reeves stood resolutely by Maggie's side, his presence a silent yet powerful assurance. Todd's fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard, navigating through layers of financial data with practiced ease. The air was thick with anticipation, every eye in the bank fixed on the unfolding drama. After several tense moments, Todd paused, his brows furrowing as he studied the screen. "This doesn't add up," he muttered under his breath, glancing at Keanu for reassurance. "These fees shouldn't have been applied so abruptly, especially not in this manner." Keanu leaned closer, scrutinizing the numbers alongside Todd. "Exactly. And look here," he pointed to a particular line item, "these charges started 2 months ago, but there's no corresponding increase in service or benefits. It seems arbitrary." Maggie watched anxiously, her hope rekindled by Keanu's keen eye. The other customers in the bank began to murmur among themselves, sensing that something significant was happening. Keanu's reputation as a problem solver was beginning to take shape in their minds, even if they didn't know him personally. Todd sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair. "There must be a glitch in the system. We have automated processes that apply these fees based on account activity and balances. It's unlikely to be intentional." Keanu shook his head slowly. "Automated or not, the impact is devastating. These fees are depleting Maggie's limited pension, pushing her into financial instability. If this is a systemic issue, it affects more than just one account." Determined to get to the bottom of the matter, Keanu requested access to the bank's internal system. Todd hesitated, glancing around nervously, but eventually complied, unlocking the necessary files. Keanu began to sift through the account details meticulously, cross-referencing them with other similar accounts. "Look at this," Keanu said, pointing to a pattern emerging from the data. "These fees are not isolated to Maggie's account. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of elderly customers experiencing the same issue. It appears to be a deliberate targeting mechanism rather than a random error." Todd's face paled as he absorbed the gravity of Keanu's findings. "That's impossible. Our system is designed to treat all accounts fairly." Keanu wasn't convinced. If the system is being manipulated to disproportionately affect a specific demographic, then it's not just a technical glitch, it's a breach of trust and ethical standards. The bank's employees, who had been quietly observing the exchange, began to shift uncomfortably. The murmurs grew louder as more customers realized the implications of Keanu's discovery. Some exchanged worried glances, while others whispered in disbelief, understanding that a much larger issue was at play. Keanu continued his investigation, delving deeper into the transaction logs and audit trails. "There are anomalies here," he pointed out. "Certain accounts, primarily belonging to elderly customers, show a sudden spike in fees without any corresponding changes in account terms or services provided." Todd leaned in, squinting at the screen. "Are you suggesting that someone is manipulating the system to impose these fees selectively?" Keanu nodded solemnly. "It's a possibility we need to explore. There could be internal fraud or a loophole in the system that's being exploited to target vulnerable customers." Maggie felt a surge of gratitude towards Keanu. His thoroughness and determination were giving her the strength she desperately needed. "What can we do to stop this?" she asked quietly, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Keanu looked at her with empathy. "First, we need to gather concrete evidence to present to the authorities. Then, we can escalate this issue within the bank and ensure that those responsible are held accountable." Todd, now visibly shaken, realized the severity of the situation. I didn't know. I swear, I had no idea this was happening. I've always followed the protocols as they were laid out." Keanu placed a reassuring hand on Todd's shoulder. "I understand that, Todd. But now that we're aware of this, it's crucial to take immediate action to rectify the situation and prevent further harm to other customers." As Todd began to navigate the system with renewed urgency, Keanu and Maggie worked together to compile the evidence. The bank's atmosphere had shifted from one of tension to a collective concern for justice and fairness. Customers who had once been indifferent or frustrated now rallied behind Maggie and Keanu, offering their support and sharing similar experiences. Hours passed as they meticulously documented every discrepancy and irregularity. Keanu's strategic mind and Maggie's unwavering resolve made them a formidable team. Finally, Todd acknowledged the depth of the issue, his earlier defensiveness replaced by a sense of responsibility. "I'll initiate a full audit of all affected accounts and report this to upper management immediately," Todd declared, his voice steadier but filled with a newfound determination. "We need to ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else." Keanu nodded approvingly. "That's the right step, Todd. Transparency and accountability are essential in restoring trust with your customers." As the day turned to evening, the bank began to breathe a collective sigh of relief. Maggie felt a weight lift off her shoulders, knowing that her fight was not in vain. Keanu's intervention had not only helped her but had also uncovered a much larger issue that needed to be addressed for the sake of many others. The other customers, now more aware of the systemic problems within the bank, expressed their gratitude and support. It was a turning point, marking the beginning of a broader movement towards fairness and ethical treatment in financial institutions. With Todd Murphy reluctantly initiating a full audit of all affected accounts, the atmosphere within Central City Bank began to shift from one of tension to cautious optimism. However, Keanu Reeves knew that uncovering the truth was only the first step in a much larger battle. The evidence he and Maggie had gathered pointed to a systemic issue that required more than just an internal review. It demanded public accountability and a relentless pursuit of justice. As the audit commenced, Keanu and Maggie found themselves at the center of a burgeoning movement within the bank. Other elderly customers, inspired by Maggie's courage and Keanu's unwavering support, began to come forward with their own stories of unjust fees and financial hardships. The bank's previously indifferent atmosphere was now charged with a collective determination to expose the truth. Keanu took it upon himself to organize a meeting with the affected customers, providing them with a platform to share their experiences. He believed that solidarity was their strongest weapon against the entrenched system that had been exploiting them. Maggie, once a solitary figure of despair, now stood as a beacon of hope for many who had been silently suffering. One afternoon, as Keanu and Maggie gathered with a group of elderly customers in a quiet corner of the bank, the doors swung open once more. Todd Murphy entered, his face pale and eyes darting nervously around the room. "Mr. Reeves," he began, his voice shaky, "I need to speak with you urgently." Keanu stood up, maintaining his calm demeanor. "What is it, Todd?" Todd hesitated before speaking, glancing at the assembled customers. "The audit is complete, and we've discovered significant discrepancies. These fees were not just isolated incidents. They were systematically applied to elderly accounts to boost the bank's profits." A collective gasp filled the room as the reality of the situation sank in. Keanu's earlier suspicions were confirmed, and the weight of the injustice became undeniable. "So, it's true," Keanu said quietly, turning to face Todd directly. "This was a deliberate scheme to exploit vulnerable customers." Todd nodded, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "Yes, and I take full responsibility. I was unaware of the extent of this issue until now, but I failed to act when I had the chance. I apologize for the harm this has caused." Maggie stepped forward, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. "Apologies are not enough, Todd. Lives have been ruined by these unjust fees. We need more than words, we need action and restitution." Keanu placed a reassuring hand on Maggie's shoulder. "We need to ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. The bank must take responsibility and make amends for the wrongs committed." Determined to hold the bank accountable, Keanu proposed a plan. First, the bank needs to reimburse all affected customers for the fees they were unfairly charged. Additionally, we need to implement stricter oversight and transparent policies to prevent such abuses in the future. Todd, though visibly shaken, agreed to the terms. "I will present this to the board immediately. We will initiate the reimbursement process and review our policies to ensure this never happens again." As the meeting concluded, the sense of accomplishment was palpable. The affected customers felt empowered, knowing that their voices had been heard and that tangible steps were being taken to rectify the situation. Keanu had not only uncovered the truth but had also ignited a movement for justice and fairness within the bank. However, Keanu knew that their battle was far from over. There were deeper layers to uncover, and the road to full accountability would require relentless effort. He began reaching out to local media outlets, determined to shed light on the bank's unethical practices and to rally public support for the cause. The story quickly gained traction, with news reports highlighting the plight of elderly customers and the bank's role in perpetuating financial hardship. Public outrage mounted, putting immense pressure on the bank's higher-ups to take decisive action. Keanu's strategic use of media not only amplified their message but also ensured that the bank could no longer hide behind corporate facades. Amidst the growing support, Keanu continued to work closely with Maggie and the other affected customers, ensuring that their needs were addressed and their voices remained strong. The collaboration fostered a sense of community and resilience, as individuals who had once felt powerless found strength in unity. One evening, as Keanu and Maggie reviewed the latest developments, a knock on the door interrupted their progress. It was the bank's CEO, a stern man named Richard Lawson, accompanied by legal counsel. Mr. Reeves, Ms. Thompson, he began, his tone formal and cautious, we recognize the severity of the situation and the impact it has had on our customers. We are committed to making things right. Keanu met Lawson's gaze unwaveringly. It's not just about making things right, Mr. Lawson. It's about restoring trust and ensuring that your institution operates with integrity and respect for all customers. Lawson nodded solemnly. We understand, and we are taking immediate steps to overhaul our policies, provide full restitution to those affected, and implement comprehensive training programs for our staff to prevent future occurrences. With the CEO's commitment, the momentum of their battle for justice reached new heights. The bank began a transparent process of change, actively involving the affected customers in the restructuring efforts. This collaboration not only facilitated the healing process but also set a precedent for ethical practices within the financial industry. As the weeks turned into months, Central City Bank transformed into a model of accountability and fairness. The unjust fees were eliminated, and comprehensive support systems were put in place to assist elderly customers and other vulnerable groups. The once oppressive environment was now a testament to the power of collective action and unwavering determination. Maggie, standing alongside Keanu, reflected on the journey they had undertaken. I never imagined that my struggle would lead to such significant change. Thank you for believing in me and fighting for what's right. Keanu smiled warmly. You were the catalyst, Maggie. Your courage inspired us all to stand up and demand justice. Together, we made a difference. The story of Maggie Thompson and Keanu Reeves became a beacon of hope, illustrating that even in the face of systemic injustice, individuals could come together to create meaningful and lasting change. Their battle for justice not only transformed a single bank but also ignited a broader movement advocating for fairness, respect, and integrity in all aspects of society. Months had passed since Keanu Reeves had stepped into Central City Bank to support Maggie Thompson. The bank had undergone significant changes, with new policies being implemented to ensure fairness and transparency. However, despite the improvements, the remnants of the old system still lingered, and Todd Murphy, once the epitome of bank authority, struggled to adapt to the new environment. One crisp morning, as the bank buzzed with the energy of a new day, Keanu received a call from Maggie. Her voice was filled with urgency. Keanu, something's wrong. I need your help again. Without hesitation, Keanu made his way to the bank, his mind racing with concern. Upon arrival, he found Maggie waiting anxiously near the entrance, her eyes reflecting a deep worry. What's happened, Maggie? Keanu asked, his voice calm yet filled with concern. It's my account again, Maggie replied, clutching her envelope tightly. I thought everything was sorted out, but these fees have started piling up once more. I don't understand how this could be happening again. Keanu followed Maggie to the service counter, where a new manager, Lisa Hernandez, greeted them. Lisa had been brought in to oversee the bank's transition and ensure that previous issues were resolved. However, her demeanor was unapproachable, and her eyes held a hint of defensiveness. Good morning, Ms. Thompson. How can I assist you today? Lisa asked, her tone professional but distant. Maggie placed the envelope on the counter. I've come to address these unexpected fees again. I was assured that everything was fixed, but now they're back. Lisa glanced at the documents, her expression unreadable. Let me review your account, she said, turning to her computer. As she began typing, Keanu watched closely, sensing that this confrontation might be more significant than it initially appeared. Suddenly, the automatic doors swung open, and Todd Murphy re-entered the bank. His face was stern, and his presence immediately commanded attention. Lisa, he called out, his voice echoing slightly in the spacious lobby. We need to discuss Maggie's account. Lisa looked up, a flicker of unease crossing her features. Todd, this is a new process. I'm handling all customer concerns. Todd stepped forward, placing himself beside Maggie. Maggie deserves a clear explanation. We can't afford to let these issues slip through the cracks again. Keanu sensed the underlying tension and decided to take a proactive stance. Lisa, Todd, we've already made significant progress in addressing these fees. If there's a recurring problem, perhaps we need to look deeper into the system's integrity. Lisa frowned, her patience thinning. Mr. Reeves, I assure you, our systems are secure and any errors are purely accidental. We've implemented new protocols to prevent such issues. Keanu wasn't convinced. If these protocols were effective, why are we still seeing the same discrepancies? There must be a flaw that needs immediate attention. Before Lisa could respond, a loud crash echoed through the bank as a group of disgruntled customers, inspired by Maggie and Keanu's earlier actions, began to gather. They voiced their frustrations loudly, demanding accountability and transparency from the bank's management. Amidst the growing commotion, Keanu maintained his composure, addressing the crowd with a firm yet empathetic tone. Everyone, please calm down. We're all here to ensure that our voices are heard and that justice is served. Let's work together to find a solution. Todd, feeling the mounting pressure from both Lisa and the crowd, took a deep breath. All right, let's review Maggie's account again. This time, we'll have someone from our IT department join us to ensure there are no technical issues. As Lisa and Todd called in the IT specialist, Keanu stayed by Maggie's side, offering her silent support. The IT specialist, a meticulous woman named Rachel Lee, arrived promptly and began a thorough examination of Maggie's account and the bank's automated fee system. After what felt like an eternity, Rachel looked up, her face serious. There appears to be a recurring glitch in the system that affects accounts with specific parameters, predominantly those belonging to elderly customers. It seems the recent protocols didn't fully address the underlying issue. Lisa's shoulders sagged in resignation. I see. We need to rectify this immediately. Keanu nodded, a sense of triumph mixed with relief washing over him. Thank you, Rachel. This is a step in the right direction. But we must ensure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. Todd approached Keanu, extending his hand. Mr. Reeves, I apologize for the oversight and the distress it has caused. We are committed to making this right and preventing such issues in the future. Keanu shook Todd's hand firmly. Apology accepted, Todd. Now, let's focus on fixing this and restoring trust with our customers. As the bank began implementing the necessary fixes, the atmosphere shifted from one of confrontation to cooperation. Maggie felt a profound sense of relief, knowing that her persistent efforts, supported by Keanu, had finally borne fruit. Keanu addressed the gathered customers once more. Today, we've taken a significant step towards ensuring that everyone is treated with the respect and fairness they deserve. Let this be a lesson that when we stand together, we can overcome even the most entrenched injustices. The crowd erupted in applause, their earlier frustrations now channeled into a shared sense of accomplishment and hope. The once oppressive environment of the bank had transformed into a space of collaboration and mutual respect. As Keanu and Maggie left the bank, the weight of their journey lifted, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. They had not only resolved Maggie's issue but had also ignited a movement for systemic change within the banking institution. Maggie turned to Keanu, her eyes shining with gratitude. I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you for believing in me and fighting for what's right. Keanu smiled warmly. You were the catalyst, Maggie. Your courage inspired us all to stand up and demand justice. Together, we've made a difference. The story of Maggie Thompson and Keanu Reeves became a powerful example of how determination, solidarity, and unwavering belief in justice can bring about meaningful change. Their battle had not only transformed a single bank but had also inspired countless others to advocate for fairness and integrity in all aspects of life. As the dust settled from the intense confrontation at Central City Bank, the once bustling environment had transformed into a space of reflection and renewal. The journey that began with Maggie Thompson's desperate plea for help had culminated in a significant shift within the bank's operations and a profound impact on everyone involved. Keanu Reeves and Maggie Thompson stood near the entrance of the bank, observing the changes that had taken place. The new policies were being implemented seamlessly, and the atmosphere was now filled with a sense of hope and collaboration rather than tension and frustration. Customers who had once felt marginalized now felt empowered, knowing that their voices mattered and that the system was capable of change. Maggie looked up at Keanu, her eyes filled with gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose. "I never imagined that my struggle would lead to such widespread change," she said softly. "Thank you for believing in me and fighting for what's right." Keanu smiled warmly, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "You were the catalyst, Maggie. Your courage inspired us all to stand up and demand justice. Together, we've made a difference." As they watched, a group of elderly customers approached the counter, engaging in friendly conversations with the new bank staff. The transformation was evident not just in policies but in the relationships between the bank and its customers. The once impersonal institution had become a community hub where respect and empathy were paramount. In the weeks that followed, Central City Bank continued to evolve. Comprehensive training programs were introduced to educate employees on empathy and ethical practices, ensuring that the mistakes of the past would not be repeated. The bank also established a dedicated support team for elderly customers, providing personalized assistance to prevent future financial hardships. Keanu remained a steadfast advocate for justice, working closely with Maggie and other affected customers to monitor the bank's progress. His involvement extended beyond the bank's walls, as he used his influence to raise awareness about the importance of fair financial practices and the protection of vulnerable populations. One evening, as the sun set over the city skyline, Keanu and Maggie met for coffee at a local cafe. The conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with reflections on their journey and the lessons they had learned along the way. "Maggie," Keanu began thoughtfully, "what we went through was more than just fixing a banking error. It was about standing up for what's right and ensuring that everyone is treated with dignity and respect." Maggie nodded, her expression serene. "Yes, it showed me that one person can indeed make a difference. I felt so alone at the beginning, but your support gave me the strength to keep fighting." Keanu looked out the window, contemplating the broader implications of their actions. It's a reminder that empathy and justice should be the cornerstones of any institution. When we prioritize these values, we create environments where everyone can thrive, regardless of their circumstances. Their conversation was interrupted by a familiar face, Richard Lawson, the bank's CEO. He approached their table with a genuine smile, extending his hand in greeting. "Keanu, Maggie, it's wonderful to see you both. I wanted to personally thank you for your perseverance and dedication in bringing these issues to light." Keanu shook his hand firmly. "Thank you, Richard. It's been a collective effort, and I'm glad we could work together to create positive change." Maggie added, "We're all in this together, and it's encouraging to see the bank committed to upholding these values moving forward." As Richard joined them, the three of them discussed future initiatives to further enhance customer satisfaction and community engagement. It was clear that the bank was not just implementing temporary fixes but was committed to fostering a culture of continuous improvement and ethical responsibility. Back at the bank, the ripple effects of their actions continued to inspire both employees and customers alike. Workshops on financial literacy and ethical banking practices were held regularly, empowering individuals with the knowledge and tools they needed to manage their finances responsibly. The bank's reputation soared as word spread about its commitment to fairness and transparency, attracting a loyal and diverse clientele. Keanu and Maggie's partnership became a symbol of resilience and the power of collective action. Their story was featured in local news outlets and shared widely on social media, inspiring others to stand up against injustices in their own communities. The narrative of an ordinary woman and a determined advocate combating systemic issues resonated deeply, reminding people that change is possible when individuals come together with a shared purpose. One day, as Keanu walked through the now harmonious bank, he encountered Maggie helping a young couple navigate their first mortgage application. Her face radiated confidence and kindness, a stark contrast to the anxious woman he had first met. It was a testament to how far they had come and the lasting impact of their efforts. As Keanu reflected on their journey, he realized that the true lesson lay not just in rectifying a financial wrong but in fostering a culture of empathy and justice. It was about understanding the struggles of others, advocating for those who couldn't advocate for themselves, and ensuring that institutions serve the best interests of their communities. In the end, Maggie and Keanu's story was a powerful reminder that every individual has the capacity to effect meaningful change. It underscored the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter how daunting the challenge may seem. Their unwavering commitment to justice and empathy had transformed not only Central City Bank but also the lives of countless individuals who had been touched by their advocacy. As they parted ways that evening, Keanu felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The battle for justice had been arduous, but the rewards were immeasurable. Maggie, too, felt a renewed sense of hope and purpose, knowing that her fight had paved the way for a brighter, more equitable future. Their story concluded not with a final victory, but with the ongoing promise of continued progress and the enduring belief that empathy and justice are the true pillars of a thriving society. It was a legacy of courage, unity, and the relentless pursuit of what is right, lessons that would inspire generations to come. The story of Maggie Thompson and Keanu Reeves is a testament to the power of individual courage and collective action in the face of systemic injustice. Through their unwavering determination and mutual support, they not only resolved a personal financial crisis but also ignited a movement for fairness and empathy within a major financial institution. Their journey highlights the importance of standing up for what is right, advocating for those who cannot advocate for themselves, and fostering a culture of respect and integrity. As Central City Bank transformed into a model of ethical practices, Maggie and Keanu's legacy continued to inspire others to pursue justice and compassion in their own communities. Thank you for joining Maggie and Keanu on this inspiring journey. If their story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful tales of courage and justice. Your support helps us bring more meaningful stories to life. Stay tuned and stay inspired.